In honoring the ancestors, the textiles talk through Henry Drewal. In the 1960s, Henry spent 2 years in Nigeria where he apprenticed with a Yoruba sculptor. That experience was transformative, and it led him to a lifetime of study and teaching in the academy, listening to, collaborating with, and sharing what he learned from Yoruba people in West Africa and their descendants in Brazil, Cuba, and Africa's other diasporas. Engaging scholars, students, and communities worldwide, his research, writing, films, and exhibitions have presented the depth, richness, and beauty of Yoruba's arts and culture.
The Egungun tradition is specific to Yoruba people, both in West Africa but also in the Yoruba diaspora. Because the Yoruba, they're a very large cultural group. They number maybe about 40 million people today. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you're here to join me in knowing something about this wonderful cloth ensemble. The ensembles that we're going to be looking at today were ones that were donated through a collector and a colleague of mine who had spent a lot of time in West Africa and wanted it to have a good home, and so we brought these two ensembles here. What we're looking at is an Egungun ensemble of multi-layers of textiles from all corners of the globe. These masquerade ensembles celebrate the spirits of ancestors among the Yoruba people in West Africa. They come out during annual festivals and also on special occasions like funeral commemorations. And the members of the family are the ones who create these ensembles. In a sense, they're family signatures, they're family portraits. Everyone should contribute in some way, either providing cloth or providing money for the purchase of cloth and taking it to the tailor. Those who can compose songs will prepare songs that will be sung during the festival. Those who are good tailors may do some of the sewing and the tailoring. And then certain members of the family will be prepared and trained to perform. And they go inside this ensemble, they transform and are said to take on the spirit of their ancestors. In a sense, they go into a kind of altered state of consciousness. And in that state, they perform and they dance. The words that come, that are spoken by an Egungun, are said to be the voice of the ancestors. This individual who's inside is not who he was before he went under the cloth and into the ensemble. And the words that they speak during the festival are taken to be powerful words of prayer and blessing and prophecy. One of the key elements of choreography of these Egungun ensembles is high stepping and whirling. And when they whirl around in space, these panels of cloth fly outward on the air. And the Yoruba say that the breeze they create is a breeze of blessing from the ancestors. When they're in full performance and whirling around and these panels are flying out on the air, the mixture creates a kind of powerful optical illusion that diminishes the solidity of the masquerade and makes it seem much more ephemeral. The oldest cloth that's deepest in the ensemble is like a burial shroud, so it's what a person would be buried in.
Is this one here, is that the burial cloth?
Yes, that's probably
okay, that's what we were
the
wondering.
Inner one. And that's the one that is the oldest of the fabrics. And
yeah, it feels like it.
It's hand woven, it's a strip woven cloth on a man's narrow loom, and deep indigo color, deep blue-black color of indigo is the color of elders, because it's kind of symbolic of the depth of the ocean and the depth of their wisdom and knowledge as elders and as ancestors.
And it's a very old dye stuff, and it's
Yes.
all natural dyes on
Yes,
this one too.
yes,
And you'd have to
definitely.
know what you're doing for that.
Of the textiles that we're seeing in this ensemble, the oldest ones that are visible to us right now are probably the feet, booties.
Those look like that hand.
Those are made of,
hand-woven
that's again
indigo?
from that strip woven cloth dyed with indigo, and the maroon or purple color is probably coming from kola nut dye. And that hand woven strip cloth is very sturdy, very, very strong. So that's why they're using it in that part of the ensemble, because that's what's going to get the most wear in the performance, in the dance performance, and in the procession. Each year, additional panels and layers of panels are added. So essentially what you're seeing is a family history in cloth, from the earliest to the most recent and fashionable textiles. And then to the textiles will be added other kinds of things, like this little disc. It's an aluminum disc that's been sewn onto the panel, but it's a reference to coins. On other ones you may find cowrie shells, and coins and cowrie shells are, of course, signs of wealth. Again, it's gifts being given to honor the ancestors that are added to the ensemble.
So then, how long would it take to create something like this?
Indefinite, because once it starts, it can keep on going. There's an open netting in the front where the masquerader can see out, but the audience cannot see in. It's this rectangular area with these black and white stripes. And on the very top of the ensemble is a heavy encrusted cap or hat with a Janus head with faces both directions and a kind of coxcomb coiffure at the top, which is a ritual kind of hairdressing style to indicate a sacred presence of ancestors among the living.
That sort of sits on top of the head, right? And then all the lappets come down from there, right?
It sits on top of the head during some portions of the performance. Sometimes it's draped at the back. And you can see around the edges of all of these panels are these kind of zigzag edgings in different colors, mostly in red. That edging that you see all the way around is known as bala. And it is essentially a visualization that says to anyone looking at this ensemble that there is a sacred power concealed inside this masquerade that is sealed in and protected from outside view and outside forces.
How would one get inside?
One portion of the ensemble is left unsewn. The person will go into it in a special ritual way. I've never witnessed it, but I've been told about it. And the person who is going to embody the spirit of their ancestors steps into it with the left foot, because the left side of the body, both left hand and left foot, is seen as the sacred side of a person's body, and it's only to be used in this kind of a context. So that person steps inside the ensemble, then puts it on and is sewn up into it, and then goes out into public after certain ceremonies and preparations have been made.
And I think I've heard you talk in other times about talking about these, that the Egungun dancers like completely covered, like the hands and the face. So even if it's back off the top of the head, still the face is completely covered, right?
Must be entirely covered. There shouldn't be any part of the performer's body be shown. Would be dangerous for that person if that border between the living and the departed was broken in some way by an incomplete ensemble. So they're always refurbished, and they make sure that the stitching is strong and it's not going to fall apart in these performances.
Because if it did, that would be
not a good sign. A sign that some ancestors were not happy.
Okay.
Yes. Well, we are now with a second family member. Looking at the quality of the cloth, looking at the work that has been done on certain of the panels, I think this is probably a wealthier family than the first families, Egungun, that we looked at. And I say that as I look at the incredible kind of embroidery work and the panel work here. I see some elements of animal furs as well. I'm also seeing some more references to amulet forms. You've got a whole series of these triangular forms with either a bird or I'm from the coiled tail. It's the remnant of a chameleon, a creature that knows how to transform, and a perfect place to have that animal on an Egungun ensemble, because this is the person transformed into the spirit of an ancestor when it's in performance.
The metal work is really interesting too, because that when you start talking about it being a much wealthier family, that I would imagine all that looks like silver or something, stitched the silver braid on there.
Yes. I don't know if we've been able to find the source of some of the textiles, but you know, cloth is such a ubiquitous trade item. It travels easily. You can find it in all of the marketplaces all over Africa.
That is the cool thing about textiles, is they're this wonderful art form that you can fold up into a little packet and bring like tons of stuff home in your suitcase because they're little, but then they travel very quickly all over the place, and that's been true for, you know, thousands of years. Textiles have been a really big trade product.
Since the 18th, 19th century, Yoruba women, especially Yoruba women, have been kind of long-distance traders, where they've traveled across West and into Central Africa to major markets to buy and to sell. So it's no surprise that the textiles in these ensembles are coming from everywhere. And I also see some elements of Islamic motifs and design elements. So this may come from a family who has members within it that are Muslim, as well as traditional worshipers of ancestors and also Christians.
So this is a really nice visual of how different faiths can come together in one thing, and there's like physical evidence of each of these faiths within this.
Exactly. Whether a Yoruba person is Christian or Muslim or a traditionalist, when it comes down to serious matters, they remember that everyone has ancestors. Doesn't matter what religion you are, you have those that came before you, those whose shoulders you stand on in your own life, and that you need to honor those that have come and gone.